Good morning, everybody. It is pouring rain here. I don't know what it's doing where you're at, but hopefully the internet will cooperate. In times of bad weather, we cannot be too sure. But today we're starting a new book of the Bible, 2 Samuel, and it's chapters 1 through 5. Hey there, Monica. Good to see you, sister. So this is from a commentary that I was reading this morning, just to give us, whenever we start a new book of the Bible, I like to get some background information about it. Hey there, Melinda. The book of 2 Samuel records the life of David as king. There are several accounts of events in 2 Samuel that are also in 1 Chronicles. So sometimes you might be, when you're reading, wait, I read this somewhere before. There are some similar events. And some of the accounts are very similar, but some of the accounts are different. The authors wrote these accounts for different reasons. The author of 1 and 2 Samuel wrote about the main events in the lives of Samuel, Saul, and David. And the author of this book wrote this to record the history of the Israelites at that time. However, the author of 1 and 2 Chronicles wanted to emphasize how God had always helped the Israelites. So different purposes, but they do record a lot of the same events. In general, this author wrote about the good things that happened. He wrote his account a long time after the events of 1 and 2 Samuel. So sometimes maybe time has passed and, no, I'm just teasing. We're going to look at it positively. No. He may have used different records. Sometimes the names of people and places are different, and some people had more than one name. Also, the names of places often changed over many years. So this commentary is really emphasizing, because sometimes people could be very judgmental, if you will, of the Bible, because they think, oh wait, it's not the same here as it was in this book, but they're different accounts, and they agree, you know. So the books of 1 and 2 Samuel used to be one book. The writer wrote the book in the Hebrew language, and the name of the book comes from the first important person in 1 Samuel. He was Samuel a prophet, but Samuel did not write the book. He died before the end of the book. So sometimes we see books are named after the person who wrote it. That is not the case here. So we do not know who wrote the book. The author lived after King Solomon had died in about 930 BC, which means before Christ. And after Solomon died, the country of Israel divided into two countries. These two countries were Israel and Judah. The country of Judah included the tribes of Judah and Benjamin. In 1 and 2 Samuel, the author often refers to Judah as a country. All right, and one last thing. In those days, the kings and leaders employed writers to write accounts of events in their country, and the prophets also wrote accounts of events. The writer of 1 and 2 Samuel probably got most of the information from those accounts. All right, so that's a little bit of a backdrop for what we're looking at in 2 Samuel. Good morning, Diane, Bill, and Brent. Hey, good to see you guys. Sometimes it's like the names are flying. I'm like, who is that? Anyway, as we open up our reading today with the news that Saul and his son Jonathan have died. And the person who's bringing the news to David, I think, thinks they're going to be rewarded for that news. But what we've seen about David is, even though Saul attacked him, he still honored Saul. And he loved Jonathan, his son. They had like a covenant relationship with one another, because even though Jonathan's dad, Saul, tried to kill David, Jonathan loved David. And so David hearing this news about Jonathan was not a happy day, not a happy day at all. And even mourning the loss of Saul. I wondered this morning as I was reading that, if there's ever been someone who's attacked you or who's attacked me, and if you hear of their passing, Lord willing, there'd be a humble response, because that's what we see here with David. There's no celebration. And it doesn't surprise me, because this is what we see of David. He was an honorable man who feared God, and he did have a heart after God. He was a man after God's own heart, but he wasn't perfect, and we'll get to that eventually. So there's no celebration about it, and David sang a lament for Saul and Jonathan, and he ordered that the Judahites be taught the song of the bow. So, you know, it strikes me that here he is, you know, he's just about to be made king, and the first thing he's going to do is write. I don't know, it didn't say he wrote it, but he sang a song in honor of them. In 2 Samuel 2, David asks God if he should go to Judah in verse 1. And it says this, "Sometime later, David inquired of the Lord, 'Should I go to one of the towns of Judah?' The Lord answered, 'Go.' Then David asked, 'Where should I go?' 'To Hebron,' the Lord replied." You know, what strikes me about this is the first thing David, it says, "sometime later." You know, David wasn't this ambitious, striving person. I'm going to take it. I was already anointed a king. It's a humble heart. And the first thing he does is seek God. "Lord, should I go?" You know, sometimes it might be hard to hear God's specific direction. We do know the direction that he has given us to seek him. We know some general direction as far as the commandments, right? But direction for everyday life is one of those things that maybe we don't hear it audibly, but God's principles can speak to us, and sometimes God will speak to our hearts and we just know it's him speaking. I have had incidences like this where you're praying and asking God and he just speaks to your soul and you know it's him. And so David had a close relationship with the Lord, and he's seeking God first before he makes a move, you know, and I just love that. I love that heart. And the scripture of the day is taken from 2 Samuel 2, verses 4 through 7. "Then the men of Judah came to David and anointed him king over the people of Judah. When David heard that the men of Jabesh Gilead had buried Saul, he sent them this message: 'May the Lord bless you for being so loyal to your master Saul and giving him a decent burial. May the Lord be loyal to you in return and reward you with his unfailing love. And I too will reward you for what you have done. Now that Saul is dead, I ask you to be my strong and loyal subjects like the people of Judah, who have anointed me as their new king.'" As soon as David was anointed as king, though, Abner, son of Ner, commander of Saul's army, took Saul's son Ishbosheth and made him king over Gilead, Asher, Jezreel, Ephraim, Benjamin, over all of Israel, in verse 8. And so I just love the fact that he's honoring people who honored Saul. I mean, it's just such humility. And isn't this how we should be in our life? Sometimes we have plans for our life, right? And in our plans we can strive and we can drive. But God is saying, in my time. And, you know, 15 years of being chased, I'm sorry. I always come back to that because that's a long time for someone to hunt you down. And what does David do? He honors him. He, first thing is singing a song to them, and then people who buried him, he honors them. This is such integrity and such a good example for us. But even as David is anointed as king, right off the bat, he's got issues. So sometimes we think when we're going to arrive at that place that we have in our mind or that we think God is leading us to, we might think it's supposed to look perfect. Guess what? Newsflash, it doesn't. Life is hard and we live in a fallen world. But if we are near God and we're being led by God, then no matter what comes our way, we can have peace. You know, and if we have a heart like David in this, there is just, he's not complaining about it. But right away, we see civil war between the house of David and the house of Saul. Not fun. And then Abner, the commander of Saul's army, was falsely accused by Ishbosheth, which led Abner to go to David in verses 8 through 12. Let's read that real quick. Abner was very angry about Ishbosheth's Ishbosheth's accusation. "Am I a dead dog, or a dog's head who belongs to Judah?" he asked. "All this time I've been loyal to the family of your father Saul, to his brothers, and to his friends, and haven't betrayed you to David. But now you accuse me of wrongdoing with this woman," you know, with the father's concubine. "May God punish Abner and do so severely if I don't do for David what the Lord swore to him." So everyone knows God's already made this promise. And so now Abner's incited with anger over the false accusation. And continuing on, verse 10, "What I swore to him, to transfer the kingdom from the house of Saul and establish the throne of David over Israel and Judah from Dan to Beersheba." Ishbosheth, love pronouncing that. Can you say that 3 times fast? I'm just curious. Try it at home. Did not dare respond to Abner because he was afraid of him. And then Abner sent messengers as his representatives to say to David, whose land is it? Make your covenant with me, and you can be certain I'm on your side to turn all Israel over to you. So God made a promise. David's going to be king of Israel. We see Israel and Judah divided. Again, David could have strived. Hey, I'm going to do this. I'm supposed to be over all of Israel. He waits. God accomplishes it. There is such beauty in that principle of trusting God, and not trying to make it happen in the flesh. That's hard. We don't like to be patient, and we live in the, I want it now culture. But, there's things that God spoke to me when I was 19 years old that took many years to be fulfilled. And there were times where I tried to make it happen because this is what God said. And then there were times when I finally gave up and God made it happen. Boy, if we had the wisdom when we were younger that God gives us, but we can all have wisdom, all of us, if we will just go to God and he'll give it to us. But if we'll be patient too. So then after this, Joab, the commander of David's army, kills Abner, and Ishbosheth was also assassinated. David was made king of Israel in 2 Samuel 5, and right away he has the Philistines attacking him. So I think sometimes we can make idols and we can covet certain things in our lives that we want to happen a certain way. And I just think there's a beauty in being yielded to God. Your will, Lord. Whatever you have for me, may I serve you humbly, and may it not be about me. And that's what I see in David here. He's not making it happen. So then there's also this story that we've seen there, Mephibosheth, say that name fast 3 times, who is the son of Jonathan, was crippled. And we're going to hear more about him next time and David's compassion on him. But who can we show compassion to who maybe has not been very kind to us? Maybe that's a good question to ponder, because that's something that I was really struck by today. And can we rest in God's plan, rest in his will, and wait on him to bring us to the place that he wants us to be? So you guys, I'm loving starting a new book. It's exciting stuff. Sometimes it's a little gruesome, all the wars, but there's sweet application always for us in our lives. So thank you for being here today, and go with God. Lord willing, we'll see you tomorrow.